You guys hear me? I'll be monitoring Gen Chat. Announced this yet? Or am I being a boomer and I have not announced? Alright. Hello boys. Can you guys hear me? My voice looks like it's going through just fine. So I'm going to lounge around for a bit, say hi everyone, take some questions from the general chat, and then what's gonna happen is I am going to go through the 3 articles really quickly. Just to catch anyone up, anyone that hasn't read it. And then I'll take any questions along the way. And finally we wrap it up with a Q&A session, yeah? Can you say something to make sure that I'm not talking into the void of nothingness? Okay, hit me with exclamation mark peak if you guys can hear me, just so I know. All right, there it is. I regret everything. Stop, boys. Don't do it. Oh, boys and girls, I keep forgetting. Okay, I'm gonna start going through the articles in a bit. Have you guys all had the chance to read through the whole 3 series, or would you guys like to go straight to Q&A, or would you guys like to let me walk through so I can explain it in my own voice? Maybe it's better if I talk through it instead of just reading. Talk through, please. Okay, recap. All right, fine. All I take from that is that none of you actually read it, and you're just waiting for me to recap it. Okay. Also, don't say this in Gen Chat, but I've decided that there's going to be a lucky winner from those that are actually listening right now for a 500 Cypher. Okay, just something fun to mix it up. Don't say anything. Sometimes throughout, at some point during the Fireside, I'm just going to say first person to type X and X will be a word, and the first person that no, god damn it, guys. Oh, all right, I'm not saying anything more on that. Okay, I think we have this recorded. So for those that want to ask about the monetization afterwards, I think this would be a really good resource, and it's a big resource for us moving forward on how we're approaching this. Yeah. Crypt, please, if you're here, because I see you in the chat, please monitor any good questions. If there are any good questions, let's um let's take those. Yeah. So let's go to the first article. Okay. So I've linked it in the general chat just now. The first article is so we're starting. Yeah, it's 8:05, 5 minutes in. We've started. Let's go. Okay. So first, let's talk about state of monetization. Yeah, airline's gonna lose his mod real quick because he can't keep his mouth shut. Okay. So let's talk about monetization and the state of monetization. So I think everybody here has played a game or two. You've got your PC game. So in PC games, it's very simple and very straightforward, right? You buy the game, you buy it for a fixed amount of price, and then maybe you have some DLC afterwards, and that is how the developer gets. That's how the developer extracts value from the player base, right? So that's for a traditional PC game. Obviously, there's another model which is very common in like games that need large player bases. So I'm thinking like VR here, but also like CS:GO, Valorant is moving towards this model. Is that the game is initially free to play, but the value extraction is through microtransactions, right? So the game is free to play, but over the weeks and months, you pay for skin, you pay for this boost, you pay for a battle pass. But the important thing to note for the value extraction in free to play models is that it is not pay to win, right? Like if I buy a skin in Valorant, I buy a skin in Apex, or I buy a skin in Warzone, it doesn't really give me a competitive advantage, right? Like I look fly, yes, I look cool, but I don't kill you guys any fast. You know what I mean? Okay. And so that's the two models. It's fair. It's what you're used to. It's what it's been. So now next is you move on to. So we've covered the first two. We've covered the single purchase games. We've covered the games as a service, and then some developers recently they have a really how do you say greedy model. And I'm thinking of like your EAs here, right? Like you sell the game for $60, and then you hit them with transactions on top of that, right? And with microtransactions on top of it. So you buy the game to play, and you pay a bunch of money to buy skins, and that is how I'm broke and don't have any ETH left. Okay, so that's the two main models for PC. So now we go over to mobile. Right? With mobile, I think everyone's played a mobile game, right? Like back then, mobile games used to be similar to PC games, where you pay the money once and you get the game. But now everybody, I think everyone knows this, but everybody and their mothers that's making a mobile game has microtransactions in their mobile game, right? And these microtransactions can earn the side of like cosmetics and non-gameplay affecting items, or they can just be outright stuff that makes you. I'm going to exclude ads here because I think people are moving away from ads, but yes, ads is a big deal also. Just to reply to Rice, right? But for mobile games, they charge for everything, right? The really egregious examples, right? So you'd have your cosmetics, you'd have your battle pass, you'd have your character unlocked. That's not uncommon for a typical PC game. But what they do charge on top of that is they charge for everything, right? You guys know this. They charge like if you run out of stamina, you pay to get more stamina so you can play. They literally make you pay to play more in a certain amount of time. They charge for consumables that will give you an outright benefit in the game that if people do not have consumables, they do not have access to this, and you are outright at an advantage. And obviously, they charge for character unlock systems that is not pay to win because I think there's a big resistance to pay to win from the majority of the player base, which fair enough. But the model is pay to keep up. Yeah. So either you are 16 at home, no job, no life, and you play this game 24/7, or you pay money to keep up with those people, right? And this is usually gated behind like huge loot boxes and battle pass and that kind of. That is where the mobile space is right now. But if you've noticed that in both these relationships, right, it's a one-way direction. It's a one-way direction of money transfer, right? The value extraction goes from the player base to the developer, and that's it, right? Developers don't give money to the player base. That's just not a thing. That's just not a thing that happens. Okay. So now we move to play to earn. So play to earn, obviously, you now have a third party. there's another party extracting money from this economy. And so in the article series, I refer to them as earners. So what earners are is they're individuals who play the game or they're involved in the game's ecosystem in order to generate profits, right? And their enjoyment of the game is considered second. Okay. And so and I think it's fair to say for a lot of earners, this is their like full-time day job. Yeah. So they need a consistent income from this game. So in an ideal loop, right? You now have this third party. So now the player, instead of only paying the developer, the player pays both the earner and the developer. You see this in the first triangle diagram under the subtopic analysis on play to earn, right? And then the earners also pay the developer a small amount if it's for blueprint unlock and something like that, right? But what's important to note about the earners is that they are a value extract, right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that if earners are there to get a benefit, right? So they actively take money out of the ecosystem, right? So a big point, like, and one of the main points that I've made in the first article is that I understand we're in the blockchain space and we're in the P2E space. But the most important thing is that having an earner only economy leads to your game's downfall, right? Because it's just simply it simply doesn't make sense, right? If we define the earner as someone who is looking to make money and you make money from them, if the way you make money is from new people that join your economy to make more money, that is fundamentally a pyramid scheme, right? The money needs to come from somewhere, right? And if their money is only on the promise of more money, it just doesn't work. And so what happens is this only works for all P2E games so far, and the ones that are successful is that this works great in a bull run, and this works great when your player base is booming, right? When you have like 10 new players a day because like, oh my god, this shit is amazing. When everyone just jumps in at the same time, when everyone jumps in at the same time, like this listen looks great, right? Because everybody's making money. But same thing for a pyramid scheme. Everyone makes money at the start because there's new people. But what happens when you don't get any more new? What happens when the player base stagnates, right? When the player base stagnates, when there are no more new earners, suddenly you're left in an economy with everybody that is a value extractor. So who's gonna pay all these earners? They're not gonna pay each other. Is the developer gonna suddenly start giving money to the earners? Uh, no. Yes. So an earner. So the takeaway from the first article, right, is that one, earner only economies do not work, and they literally only work for the first people that jumped in at the start, which comes back to the issue of it's a pyramid scheme. So earner only economies don't work. So now we move to the second episode, right? The three-party economy. What Cypher is looking for, what the vision is, what it's going to be, how it's going to tie in together, right? I'm going to need Crypt to go through the questions. I have a list of questions already that I will answer. But if new questions during this, I'll need Crypt to pick through and like interject and tell me this question should be answered. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to read and talk at the same time. I don't have that much multitask. Okay. So earner only economies do not work, or rather, they only work for the first few people in this, right? So let's just moving on to the second article. Let's talk about why the players are important in a play and earn model, right? Not play to earn, play and okay. So you guys all know our top priority in Cypher is to make a fun and enjoyable game, right? That's just a no-brainer. However, there are other and that is the main thing you need to do to get players to come to a game, right? And players have to come to a game because that's where the value comes from. The money value comes from the players, and in exchange, they get the enjoyment of either playing this game or progressing in this game. That is just how it works. Right? So to get them to come to our economy, we need to make a good game. I don't think you guys are gonna give me a pat on the back for saying that. I think that's a no-brainer. But what can we do to compete with traditional gaming? And I think a mistake that a lot of the current play to earn game makes is that they just think that play to earn is its own bubble, and like, we don't need to worry about competing with traditional. And they think that, oh, because you can earn, like traditional gaming isn't the same. It's not in the same field, but that's just not true. Like everybody has the same amount of time. Like going back to the point before, earner economies do not work, and everybody only has the same amount of time and money in a day, right? I'm sure all of you guys have a fixed budget that you guys set aside for in-game microtransactions, and you guys have a set amount of time that you guys set aside for playing video games, right? So any amount of money that you spent on another traditional game is money that you're not spending on potentially my game or our game, and or potentially another playthrough. So we have to compete with AAA games, right? Like we have to do that because it's not a completely new thing. It's traditional gaming with a new feature. That's where we're moving. So, and we're also competing with many free-to-play games that are in the PC and mobile markets, right? So let's talk about long-term value extraction instead of upfront extraction. This is point 2 in the article. If the entry price of your game is $300, it's not possible to have a good player base because the only people that are paying $300 to play your game are those that are looking to make money from it. And once again, earner-only economies do not work. And traditional gamers will not pay $300 for a normal game. That's just not possible. And if you guys read like traditional news, you guys read Reddit, you guys read like general sentiment, conventional gamers are very resistant to the concept of NFT gaming. Like, and a lot of them even think of NFT gaming as, and they don't even understand the benefits of true ownership or being able to sell or be able to resell their assets after they want to quit the game, right? So when there's such a strong negative association and lack of understanding about NFTs, and the game's entry point is like more expensive than a AAA game, like it's an impossible sell for anyone that's looking to play the game for fun. So what we must do is we have to extract the value from the players over a long period of time, and we can't move this extraction. We can't make it an upfront extraction, right? Think about your traditional games, your CS:GO, your League of Legends, your Hearthstone, your Legends of Runeterra, your Valorant, whatever, whatever the game you're thinking. Right? I'm sure there are examples of some of you guys that pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on these games. Okay, and and I don't judge that. I think that's great. I do it too. I have spent an obscene amount of money on video games, right? But at no point in time have I ever just paid $300 to a developer at any time, right? Like I've never done that. I'm sure none of you have ever done. So what we must do to be a successful game, to compete with other video games, right, is we must drop the price of admission to my gut reaction is it has to be cheaper than a AAA. It's just because you need that player base for the gradual extraction, right? And the way we do that right now is what we're thinking is we just make the cost to clone very cheap, and everybody can do it, right? So supply can just immediately match the demand, and that's the solution we have right. But to so a quick question repeatedly. As a game with expensive NFTs as gatekeepers that are lent out for percentage, aren't we free to play to start? Yes, technically, but that is not scalable because the moment that renters run out, you now make people pay $300. And that's not a good way to onboard players in your because if I market a game, it's a great question, but if I market a game and I say play now, and they click on that link and they say, oh my god, I can play now for free. And they click on it, and then nope, all the NFTs have been rented out. Then it's not a free to play game anymore. Free to play means no matter the number of players in the game, it's free. It's not like renting is a temporary fix for a small player base yet, but it is in no way a scalable system to match like 50K players. You know what I mean? So the next step. So let's move on to how do we move ahead and extract this long-term value. The Cypher market. Uh, let's talk about we're gonna have an AMA with Justin about this, who's leading the marketplace. I think you guys are gonna love it, but I will talk about it for so you guys see how it fits in with our economy. So to facilitate this, you need an in-game marketplace, right? Like if I'm playing a game, I should not have to alt tab, open up a link, go into some website to buy my games. it should just be all done with. So this marketplace will be in game. It'll also obviously exist outside of the game, but it will be in game, outside of game. And what this does is that it lets whoever is playing Cypher, it keeps the experience completely in game. Like players don't need to exit their game if they want to buy an in game item. If you guys know about UI and UX, you guys know that the less people have to click to get to to make a purchase decision, the better it is, right? So alt tabbing, going to a new website, no bueno. Now, let's talk about and it also allows the earners, right, the people who want to earn from the game, to very closely monitor the market, right? They can see that, oh, today chess pieces have a chance to make profit. Today head pieces have a chance. Today, these specific subsets of sub races have a chance to make a profit, and this just lets you keep track of a very, very diverse. Okay, give me 1 minute. I'm getting some water. I'll be right back.
Can everyone hear me? I just managed to reconnect.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm just getting some water. I'll be right back. I'm running out of saliva. Okay, I'm back.
Maybe we take a pause and answer all the
Okay. So let
AMA
me
questions
tell you
first.
what.
Yeah.
Let me wrap up this segment, and then we take a stop and pause, and for an AMA session, right?
Sure.
Let me wrap up this segment. So, okay, moving on to the marketplace. So now you have a marketplace where earners can. So what we imagine traditional gaming, right? Imagine microtransactions, right? We have literally taken a portion of the microtransactions and we have given it to you guys to sell back to the player base. That is functionally how play to earn games work, right? We take a slice of the developer pie and we give it to the earner, and that's their niche and that's their monopoly, and that's what they own and that's what they get to make profit from, right? So as Cypher continues to update the game moving forward, there's going to be a constantly changing meta of weapons, characters, and armor, and this just facilitates, trading and re-optimization of builds. Because if on this day, like you like this build more, you're gonna build it. On the next day, you don't like that build anymore, so you sell what you have and then you buy the new build. And this creates a dynamic economy that always has always has demand, so that the earners can come in and fill that supply. And I think that's very important for long-term value extraction, right? So if I could recap this segment, it's basically taking traditional MTX from a developer and we're giving it back to the earners. Okay. And I think the last thing is just that we have to bridge NFTs to the general game. Okay. And this applies to the whole space, not just Cypher. Cypher's not going to be doing something super unique that everyone else is not doing. But mass adoption of the concept of NFTs and its interaction with games and its benefits, such as true ownership of in-game assets, will be the biggest step and the biggest success of NFT gaming, right? The benefits of NFTs in the video game space must be acknowledged by the general population, because if that and we believe that that's going to happen eventually. We're going to take action. We're going to talk about it. We're going to market about it, and we're going to ensure that the benefits of NFTs are communicated and explained to traditional gamers, right? But for those that still are just like, you know what, fuck NFTs. I never want to hear about NFTs ever again. I just want to play my game. They should be able to do that, and they can and will be able to do that, and they don't have to care about NFTs at all. Maybe they care when they stop playing and they look into selling it, but during the whole player journey, they don't need. Okay, I think let's stop there. Let's take some questions, and I'm happy. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to take any questions so far, and then we can look at the different relationships between the parties.
Maybe you can take Don Pute's question first. Will there be a separate forum for feedback for all parties to come together? Earners, players, devs.
Yes, I think that's just something that we have to do. Is his question specifically? Will there be a close supportive feedback forum? Is that right? To benefit.
Yeah, because there's too much feedback from everywhere, right? Everyone has their own feedback. So is there a section where closer players can come together, or closer parts of the community members can come together?
So we do read all the feedback, right? But obviously, right now we haven't released a playable build yet. Once we release a playable build, it's going to be much more like focus testing, right? Because a thing that I really do believe, from my experience in like not just playing a lot of video games, right, is that players are really good at identifying the problems with the game, but they're really bad at coming up with solutions to the problem. So we have to, like, if developers of a lot of games listen to their player base all the time, I think a lot of them would fail. So we are going to, right now we're taking feedback in a more open scenario, but as it gets more focused, it gets more built out, we're going to be stress testing specific features, specific things, which will be like specifically focus grouped out, and we will tell you guys about that.
Actually, Pete, can you elaborate your point where if the developers always listen to their players, they might not do so well? Can you elaborate that?
Yeah, so the simple thing is that players, and I don't mean offense to you guys, but I mean this me too. Like, if I play a game, whatever the game is, I can say that this part is unfun, right? And I would be right. But me offering a solution to fix, it would not be a good solution because the solution has to be considered for the whole game in general, right? It can't just be hyper focused on that one. So it tends to be that solutions suggested by the player base tend to fix only that problem, but create other problems elsewhere, right?
Because there are also a lot of factors to consider, lah.
Exactly. So that's why it's going to be very focused group. And when we do get feedback, we won't just say like, "What do you think?" And we might do that at the start, right? But as it goes on, we'll say, "What do you think about this character's movement? What do you think about this character's VFX? What do you think about its sound design?" And I think that's the way to get proper feedback from communities moving forward.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question then. Sally Jack, will rarer subdata's like Cosmics and Crystallis be available for free to start players?
Right now, we're leaning towards no. So right now, it's not free to start yet. They still have to purchase a character right now. So like they still purchase a character. It's just not $300. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of second article, one of the NFT holders' benefit was too dope. Then the casual players, they're all looking almost the same for their subrace. But in the recent article release, I see that players will be able to buy skins from developers. What does this mean for NFT holders? That's the first question.
Very simple. So our skins right now will be based off like the original NFT skins, the NFT metadata, right? Like the different sets. So if you are an owner of those sets, you would just get it.
Oh,
like,
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Like you would just get that. You would just get that cosmetic.
Okay. Next question: can a casual player, non-NFT or clone holder, play the game and earn Cypher or Ether? I think this one we are still discussing this. Yeah.
Okay, so I can actually answer this. I
Sure.
actually have a segment for this, like in the list of pre-prep questions, right?
Yeah,
So,
correct.
where it comes to, okay,
Shall
when
we
it
just
comes
answer
to,
this later then?
yeah, can. Well, okay, promise. I'll
Yeah.
come back to this. I'll come back to this question later. Okay.
Yeah. So, Draciosa asks, let's take Genshin Impact for example for
I don't
PvE
want to answer
aspect.
Drakios' question. Let's move ahead.
We answered already, is it? Okay, can.
No, I just don't
I
like
think
Drac.
oh, you just don't like. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah. Let's move on to Article 3 then. Then we can come take other questions later. Yeah. So Cypher's plan for. Sorry.
So I'm actually not done with Article 2. So we're gonna like. I'll skip over
Okay.
the rest of Article 2, and then I'll move on to Article 3. You see how
Okay.
much work I put into this? I was up at
Fine.
like 4 a.m. just like brain vomiting this out. I had to get the rest of the team to like check the spelling, and at one point it just didn't make sense. I was just putting words that like sounded like a sentence, but it didn't. But it wasn't. It wasn't a sentence. Okay. But anyways, let's just talk about the relationships, right? So we have, and this is tentative. Things could change, but this is how we're approaching it for now. Okay. Let's talk developers and earners. Okay. Developers and earners have a very straightforward relationship. Why? Because their relationship is I'm going to make money off the player base. Okay? So the way this works is the earners are going to make something and sell to the player base. The developers will dev something and release it to the player base. And we both at the same time extract that value from the player base. Okay? But the difference is that the earners play the game, generate these items, and then sell it to the player. And then sell to the players. So what the developer affects is they affect the drop rate, they affect the blueprints, they affect the components, right? This gives us mechanisms or levers to control the supply to make sure that a bunch of brand new earners aren't coming in just flooding our market with stuff, right? And that just crashes the price and it's not sustainable and it just doesn't work. So the things that I can say clearly right now is that us, Cypher, and people looking to earn from the Cypher economy will never be in direct competition. Okay. So if you are selling an item, if you are selling an item, Cypher will never sell that same item. Okay. Never, because that just leads to a bad relationship between the two parties. And why am I undercutting a big part of my economy? It just doesn't make sense. But what will happen is that we as Cypher will control the supply of the items that the earners are selling. And this is covered more in part 3, but it's just a thing we have to do to protect the existing earners and to just have a healthy, stable economy that doesn't go from $50 to $1 overnight. Okay, so that's developer and earner. So now we go to the developer and player relationship. For the developer and player relationship, we're thinking of it as a much more traditional PC gaming kind of relationship, where we sell you guys stuff that is cool. It makes you look cooler, or like it gives you small like resource benefits, but it's nothing that actually affects, right? Like, so basically, I'm talking cosmetics, skins, portraits. EVE Online is a great game, by the way. We take a close look at it. Cosmetics, skins, portraits, icons, emotes, titles, battle passes, in-game currency, loot boxes, right? And I'm not saying we're going to do all of those. I'm just saying those fall under the list of what we consider as product. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm so, okay. So now we go on to the last one, right? So now we have the earner and player relationship. Okay. So for the earner and the players, right? This is an important thing. The important point is that it is not mutually it's not like you're an earner for life or you're a player for life, right? I actually think that a lot of people fall into somewhere in the middle. Like, if you play the game for fun, you're a player. If you decide to spend $5 to pay your bill, you're a player. But the moment that you decide, hey, I don't need this anymore, I'm going to sell it to do something else with this money, you become an earner. So, like, the general player base actually like hops back and forth between these roles, right? But for the purpose of discussion, I separate the roles. But the way we have decided to work the system now is that earners will sell stuff that directly affects game. So remember how I was talking about mobile transactions that affect the game, and it's more like pay to keep up? This is the earner economy. So now the earners are selling gear, they're selling armor, they're selling weapons, they're selling spaceships, they're selling health consumables, they're selling health refills, shield refills, high tier clones. Right? And this mass list of items is, the demand is changing every day, and it's up to the earner to know where the chances are, right? Where the opportunity is, which item is good, which item will make profit, and that's where good earners make the distinction from just average, right? So what separates the earners from each other is their market timing, their ability to know which which item is selling for better, and obviously their ability to play the game. Because the better they play the game, the more efficient they are with their time and with their resources. And what this allows you to do is that it allows micro communities to just help each other like boost fast into the game, right? If you're a max level player and you manage to get your friend or your girlfriend to come play the game, or your boyfriend, you can now put in all this money. You can, give them items. You can make items for them that fast track them up to the top. That doesn't mean that they skip straight up to the top. They still have to go up to the top, but it is a quicker process. And it's a way of onboarding new players, right? So putting this all together, we have this kind of economy, which I think you guys have all seen. It was in the graph. So in summary, blueprints and components are acquired from the earners from the developer. Non-game affecting items like cosmetics are acquired from the players from the developer. But gameplay affecting items, think microtransactions, think gear. They are the earner's niche and what lets them make money from this game, right? Now, what's important to note is that these tracks aren't set in stone. Yeah. For example, there could be a future legendary skin that is only obtained by crafting it, right? So a cosmetic is now an earner niche. And or perhaps you got lucky with a legendary skin through a loot box, and now you can sell the skin to other players. So this will not be like a walled garden that you can only do this, right? There'll be various options that we will test throughout the future. But the promise I can make is that Cypher will never undercut and will never compete directly with earners because it just doesn't make sense. Okay, that's part 2. Let's move. Quick questions on anything else on part 2. Crypt, can you check for me? If not, let's move
I
on.
missed actually one more question from Don Pute actually. How will Cypher solve the distribution problem with Steam, for example, banning NFT games in fear of them taking away their
Three
exploitative
people
business
typing.
model? Yeah. Hello?
Okay. Crypt has just dipped out. That's fine. I can't read the thread. I'm sorry. If you have a question about part 2, just type into Gen Chat and I'll try and get it. I'll spend maybe 5 minutes here and then let's move on to the third one. Oh, Crypt, you're back. Okay. Any questions for me? Something is wrong. I reconnected. Would I earn Cypher when people clone my NFTs? I think you have a misunderstanding. So what would happen is you would clone your NFTs and then you would sell them to people looking to get a character to play. And they might buy multiple characters or they might buy one. That's up to you. But that's where you would earn something back for selling it. Which currency it is, it's still in discussion, so I'm not going to comment on that just yet, but you will get monetary return back from selling it. Okay. Let's move on to part 3. Cypher's plan for a deflationary economy. I feel so smart, like putting multiple words together, like 4 syllables at a time. Like deflationary economy. I'm not actually that smart. I'm just parroting what other people tell me. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the main, right? Why does Cypher care about price fluctuations? Right? And this is a very fair point. Like, why does Cypher give a shit if the economy is a free market that just does whatever it wants and can self-correct to whatever the market, right? And this is a very fair question because in the real world it's like this. Like, so why is it different? And the big problems is that production costs are either very low or non-existent. To create a product in a real world, let's talk about a car. To make a car, you have various costs, right? You design the car, you put R&D into it, and then you manufacture the car. And obviously, manufacturing the car has actual real world material costs. On the other hand, a virtual item incurs a one-time R&D cost that is for example, an in-game set of armor, right? My art team drafts the art for it. It looks great, and then my game dev team codes it. Done. That is the in-game item, and the general population can now make an infinite number of that set of armor. And this is made even worse by the fact that virtual items don't depreciate, right? If you keep your car for 20 years, it's going to go to shit. Like, it's not going to drive. You probably need to spend a boatload of money fixing it. A car needs constant maintenance and gets rusty over time. So what happens in the real world is that items decrease in supply and price, right? That's important. They both decrease in supply as well as price. But for virtual items, they stay perfect forever, and there is an infinite supply. That in this typical scenario where there is no intervention, there is infinite deflationary pressure. That is to say, over time, the price of whatever this virtual item is will just go to zero or approximate close to zero because, it doesn't cost anything to make a new one. So if there's no interference from Cypher for any given good in the Cypher economy, everything would just crash in price over time. And they might everything would slowly go down in price. And if there's an overabundance of supply, then it would crash. Because of that, there must be interfering measures from Cypher to maintain a stable virtual economy, right? And what this does in turn is that it gives people in the economy, like you guys who are playing and earning, price stability. And it gives the players who are just playing day to day a fixed amount of price that they can buy, right? Because it's not good to play a game, buy something for $50, like buy a really strong end game item for $50, and then the next day the price of that item is $5, right? Like, that is horrible, horrible UX for both the player and for it doesn't inspire confidence if, like, who's gonna come earn from our game, who's gonna play our game if the money graph is jumping around like a hockey stick. You know what I mean? So there needs to be stability. So what can we do? Like, what's Cypher going to do? Okay, let's tackle supply, right? Part one, control supply, introduce barriers. So this is not a barrier to play, yeah. This is a barrier of entry to the market. So, uh, so let's go back to the car example, right? Let's say that tomorrow, me and all of you guys can make a brand new Tesla that's the exact same quality as existing Teslas for no cost at all. Like obviously impossible. We can't do that. But in a virtual economy, this is very possible. And if we do this, the price of Tesla is just screwed. Like it goes to nothing because we're just making brand new Teslas the same as Tesla, but they put all this money into developing and making Tesla. So we have to protect the people that invest time and money into Cypher, the people that put in research that play the game really well to generate items to sell it to Cypher. Like in this economy, it should not be as simple as I see what the top earners are doing. I just copy them. I make the same thing as them, and then I just start competing with them directly. That's not fair. That doesn't. So sellers of product. So to combat this, there needs to be a barrier of entry for those that want to contribute to the Cypher market, right? And these barriers could come in the following forms. There's a minimum amount of game time that you play. There's a minimum level that your account level has. There is a fee to enter the market, and this we discuss this later. Or there's or you have to own a Genesis Cypher NFT, right? None of this is set in stone. But what I'm saying is there has to be checks and gates as if you're getting like a seller's license. Like to be eligible to sell, you need to have A, B, C, D. And what this does is it protects the people that are savvy with the economy from brand new people just looking to turn a buck. And a very fair counterpoint to this is that would this not discourage new earners from trying the game, right? Because if I have to play all the way to end game to finally start earning this game, like that kind of goes against the spirit of play and earn, right? So, and I think that's very fair. But do note that this concern is onboarding. This concern is focused specifically on onboarding earners, right? But for people looking to play the game, this is not really an issue. And remember, as I said, earners will follow players. The priority is to acquire players, but there are still things we can do to facilitate earners joining, participating in our economy with a second initiative, right? One second, I'm going to take a sip of my water. Okay. Controlling supply part two, creating a multi-product economy. Okay. So to further address the issue of inflationary supply, while still facilitating new earners being able to participate in the economy and trying out our game, what we're going to do is we're going to spread the supply into a multitude of different products. Let's go to reverse, right? If all participants in the market were only to sell the same currency, then the volatility for that currency is massive, right? Because all the supply is going to that one. But if there's a diverse economy that allows participants to maybe sell currency, sell items from low level gear to high level gear to consumables, then suddenly this selling pressure is diversified into many, many different items. So what does this achieve, right? Like what does this do? It just basically stops. It just stops your price. It stops price volatility. It stops your price crashing to nothing, right? Let's take a situation where there's only two items in your market. You can sell your currency and you can sell your clones. Okay. So imagine that for a second that one day, for whatever reason, clones are no longer profitable. Okay. Everybody that's looking to earn money from this game can no longer sell clones. What do? They take all their resources, they pivot it to selling currency. And this just crushes your currency price. And I'm not gonna name names, but you guys have seen this in many other P2E games. This is what happens. When supply is pivoted from one source to another, you ruin the price of the other one. Okay? But let's imagine another scenario. Let's take a scenario where you have a massive category of items. You've got low tier gear, high tier gear, consumables. So now clones are no longer profitable. But look, people can now diversify their selling pressure into a bunch of shit. They can sell low tier gear, they can sell high tier gear, they can sell consumables. Or even if you don't sell low tier shit and you have all this resource, you could sell to other people who still need it. And this just diversifies the economy and just protects your currency and protects you guys, right? It protects you guys. So this is what we have to do. And I think you guys can see that this is very important for protecting the people in the game. And the important thing is it's also good for players, right? Like, yeah, imagine your mobile game has a premium currency. And you're like, okay, today the premium currency to buy this character tomorrow is what? Like, how is that good user experience? It's not. So we're gonna avoid it. So how does this allow us to have barriers of entry while still protecting the current earners of Cypher, right? By having this diverse market with many avenues of revenue generation, what we can do is we can then tier it. We can set to tiers, right? So brand new players have some things they can sell, but if you want to sell the good stuff or if you want to sell a specific niche, you have to play, you have to earn, you have to level up your account, and then you can start selling. So the simplest example is that new people sell low tier items, and the people who play a lot sell high tier items. Oh, excuse me. And this is one of Cypher's many solutions to encourage people to play the game, to try and earn. And we still do it, and we still do that while protecting those that are the cornerstone of Cypher economy. Right? Okay. Part 3. How else do we control supply? Let's talk resource. So this is a very simple, it's a very simple idea. And I think everyone's been shouting sync, 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 sync for other games. So I think this is very obvious. But basically, you need an out for items other than just selling, right? Like you should be able to disassemble it for materials. You should be able to re-roll it. You should be able to combine them together to make a higher rarity item. You should be able to use spare resources to like I said before, re-roll to maximize the price. You can transmog it. So like if you don't like the stats, but you like the look, maybe you can transmog it so you can keep the look, but you get different stats, right? Or at the very, very least, you should be able to sell it in-game for an in-game currency, like a non-premium currency, right? But basically, items should never be stockpiled in someone's wallet or inventory, right? Like, no. Items have to cycle out if there's no use. And this is very important because this gives people an out to send their usage shit. Otherwise, it's just gonna start building up, building up, building up, and it doesn't it's not good. Also, I like that Crypt is pushing his lack of technological ability into me talking too much. Hit him with a flash exclamation mark, please. Okay. Another thing is the controlling item drop rates, right? I think this is very obvious. And this more applies to the end game. But basically, throughout the game's life cycle, we're going to closely monitor the drop rate of items with the rarity and with the relative power level, right? And we're not only talking about like end game items. Yeah, this relationship between drop rates and power level has to be existed throughout the whole game. Because let's say a rare item, right? It's not the strongest item, but if it's disproportionately so common relative to its power level, then suddenly, why should I spend this extra money to buy an epic when I could spend so cheap to buy a pretty good rare, right? So what happens when this happens is that items in a similar gear level, either slightly worse or slightly better, just goes down in price because of how cost effective this one item is. So to sum this up, drop rates must have a close correlation to the in-game value and power of the object, right? And it has to adequately reflect the rarity from common all the way up to legendary. And like I am obviously going to admit that we're gonna mess up somewhere, and some item is going to be busted and going to be like is going to be made like oh like that's gonna happen. And what our responsibility is to not like obviously we avoid that as much. When it does happen, we hot fix it and we fix it right away, to make sure that it self corrects and it doesn't messes up other things. Right? Okay. So let's go to part 4. Other potential solutions for controlling supply. And I want you guys to know that what we're going to discuss right now is very, very stage, right? Like, so some of this might not even make it final. We just want to show you guys how much thought we've put into it. Okay, so the core is this: how do we limit people from just pumping an endless supply into selling things, right? And a thing that we've discussed is transmutation, right? And what is transmutation? Um, Transmutation is all items upon generation. They're owned by you and they're free to use for you, right? But to sell them to other players, activate them on the marketplace, you must pay a listing fee, right? And this fee is priced in a specific non-tradable transmutation curve. Okay, so it's not a currency that is it's not a currency that people make money from. It's just a way for us to gate supply, right? And the only way you earn it is either by playing the game and you acquire it daily. And maybe there are other ways to acquire it, but those are the main ways. So this listing cost will be fixed based on the rarity of the item. And a system like this would allow Cypher, as the developer, to control the currency drop rate. And what this does is prevents product or items from being flooded on the market. Okay. And we can correct the supply of that item on the market until it corrects, right? Or until we have enough time to address the power level or to address the drop rate. But what this essentially means is that the amount of items you could sell is tied to how much you play, how good you are at the game, and it's capped equally for everyone. So efficient spending of this transmutation currency is very important. Okay, so now we're going to go through a list of potential solutions. I'm going to skim through them because I think they're quite complicated, and some of them might not even make it. But the eventual conclusion is that how do we take away supply, right? So solution number one, the bonding curve model. What this means is that based on the last sold auction price of this item, the fee to transmute this item increases as a percentage of that, right? And what this does is it corrects any excess supply based on the live price of an item, right? And why this is good, right? It's automated. It's much better for like the late game items that are low traffic and high price, right? The con is that this is really bad user experience for anybody that, like, imagine you make this item slightly later than the other 10, you're going to sell it and suddenly half your cost is like slashed because you were late to. So this is the potential issue. Let's move on to number two. It's similar to before, but now it's a marginal tax based on quantity. So what this means is that the more items of the more of that same item is listed, the increase in the transmutation tax, right? Once again, it is automated and it's great for items that has mass quantity with low prices, but it will still feel bad for anybody trying to sell these at a later point in time because you just make less money and it's not as good. So let's go to number three. This one's a more unique one. It's a marginal tax on a per item basis, right? What this means is it's like introducing real life depreciation. So like every time an item is sold, it quote unquote reduces in quality until eventually it no longer makes sense to sell this item. And the way this works is that it just slowly takes things out of the Cypher market, right? Because you can't buy it, use it, and then resell it. And a good solution of this is that it's a good UX for sellers because if you make a new item, you sell it, and there's no penalty, right? But a reason why this is bad is that this might not be quick enough to protect against an oversupplied. Okay, I am going to shut up for 10 seconds while I take a drink and get some water, and I'll see if Crypt actually talks.
Hello, testing. Finally. Can you hear me? Hello. Wow, that was I think another 30 minutes of non-stop from Peak, but I'm back. Thanks everyone.
All right. Do you guys hear him? Oh, is he saying anything?
Yeah. Thanks, Peak.
Why can't I hear Crypt? Heck.
Can you hear me?
Oh my god, my headphones are off. Jesus Christ. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, I can hear him now.
Hey,
All right, okay, congrats.
Have you had a drink?
I just got my drink. Don't worry.
Okay. Slow down a bit, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Nah,
it's
it's all
okay,
good.
yeah.
We have a lot to go through, and it's important. It's all good.
Okay, can. Yeah.
And it's good to talk a lot because then people know that we've been hard at work, thinking about all this stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about solution number 4, okay? And this is the nerds. This is where we basically take a look at every single item on the marketplace and we just check their prevalence, their price, and their supply. And we have somebody sitting in a basement with like 50 Excel sheets on like 10 different monitors. Like it's like those scenes from the hacker movies, and they just manually check every price and adjust it, like weekly or daily, right? The good thing about this is that it allows for very, nuanced, fine-tuned control over the market and items that could potentially be oversupplied, right? The cons of this is that I don't think I can actually hire anybody to do this well. Because it's very prone to human error. It's very easy to mess up, and this will be like a soul draining job. So I don't think we're going to do this. I'm just saying that this is one thing we considered at one point. I actually came up with this and it got shot down. So number 5, I am durability based on 5A and 5B. This is basically mimicking real life durability. You buy a new item, you use it, it gets worse in quality until it eventually breaks where you have to repair it, right? And this has been done in a lot of games. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate this. Like, it feels horrible. And especially in this space where we're pushing this this spirit of like ownership, like making a virtual item slowly break and then disappear feels really bad.
But it won't
And
disappear, right? It won't actually disappear, right? It will be
okay,
repaired, right?
yes, it will be repaired, but the repair cost will be high. And the main summary is it's such bad UX, right? Like you have a virtual item, and and we're just arbitrarily telling you that, oh, you've used this virtual gun 100 times, so now it's gonna be worse, and now you need to give us something to make it better again. It it would really be good for the solution for the issue that we're trying to worry about, but it's bad UX for the players. And Sideshow says, "Don't break my weapon speed." Um, so another alternative solution we have for this is we actually give you infinite durability, right? Like we give you infinite uses, but we limit the durability based on time. So like you could use it as much as you want, but over 2 months, 3 months, your item slowly depreciates, where it either goes to where it either breaks or it has to be paid to be fixed. And once again, it's just bad UX. Like I think it's bad UX, but these were considered, and they might be reconsidered in the future. But I'm just saying, like, you know, it works great on paper, but we don't want to implement a solution that pisses off our player base, right? Okay. So that's all the things that we can do to counteract supply, right? So let's talk about how do we tackle demand? How do we engage demand? How do we give more demand to Cypher? Okay. And like I said, the really no-brainer answer is, oh wow, make a good game, Thank you, Peak, for a great Fireside. Make good game, make money. Um, so that's the no-brainer answer. But what else can we do? Um, obviously the larger the player base, the better the demand. If Cypher can have like a huge player base like some of the mobile games, I would be over the moon, right? I would be so happy. But things we can do. We can, I've said before, but it's going to be a games as a service. So for a game to be a successful blockchain game, it should be, a live service game. Why? Because there's got to be season passes, there's got to be content cycles that just always provides users with new things to do, new characters, new gear to try, new challenges to conquer. And this in conjunction with a crafting system that lets earners fill in these niches, it creates a dynamic market that is always shifting. It depends on the meta, and it keeps the game vibrant as well as keeping the demand of the game constant, right? Another thing we can do is we just create a diverse meta, right? There should be various feasible ways to play the game. Like if you wanna be a close range burst DPS, a long range sustain damage, a mid range tank, or whatever combo you can think, that should we should make a healthy meta that many playstyles can compete. And what this means is that everybody doesn't rush to build the same item set. Like that's boring, and it piles in supply to one thing again. And this creates interesting matchups. It avoids the end game from feeling repetitive, and it just encourages players to try many different builds, prepare different sets of gears, multiple clones with different abilities, and that just all of that contributes to more demand. Okay, wrapping up. I hope that this as I said in the article, I hope this provides some insight into how serious we're taking like the economy, right? Like as I said before, player first, right? Because earners follow players, but that doesn't mean that we neglect the economy. We have to do both. We have to bring in players, and we have to make a healthy economy for both players and earners. Okay, and yeah, so that's basically the recap of the three article series. I'm happy to take some questions now, some fresh questions, and then I'm happy to go. I'll go through the list of questions that were pre-picked. Crypt.
Can we go to, of course, Don Pute's question first? Just let me know if you've heard this one yet. Yeah. How will
Yeah.
Cypher solve the distribution problem with Steam? For example, banning NFTs, etc. Is there a fear for you guys?
So I love that because I brought Steam up too. I actually read an article where Steam, like Gabe Newell, right? Steam's owner, commented on why he blocked NFTs. And his comment was literally, the tech is great. Most of the people in this space are bad actors, basically scammers. He didn't say scammers, but he said bad actors. And everything is just so volatile for that reason. We do not let people buy games with cryptocurrency, and we do not let NFT games on because it's bad UX, because a lot of people are bad. And I think that just shows. Sorry?
The article
Yeah,
was released today, right?
it's very recently. It was like today or yesterday. But basically, he outright and said the tech is great. A lot of people in the space are scammers. Not like that severe, but that way of saying. So, and I think what that tells us is that it's not that Steam will ban NFTs forever, but Steam needs to see some clear games that actually take gaming seriously, take protecting their player base and their earners seriously. And I think Steam will like then slowly reconsider their stance, right? But aside from that, we will have to find other ways of distribution, right? We have to go on EGS, we have to go on Epic Game Store. We have to let people, straight download our game. We have to market our game. Like distribution is still important, but I don't think that NFTs are going to be this banned thing forever. I think it's going to, and I hope that it turns around with the prevalence of really good, proper NFT games that actually are about the game, not about it. Okay. Anyone else? Also, very quickly, the first person to type ! Peak is the best mod gets 5 Cypher.
Who was it?
Superman got it.
Okay, can. Yeah. Superman just send us a ticket with your wallet address. Yeah. Thank you.
Dux is saying he got it, but he put. Wait, hold on.
Wait. It's technically not wrong, right?
Yeah, but I didn't specify spaces or no spaces. Superman gets it. Sorry, Dux. Faster next time.
Next question. Shall we take Drake's question? Are you ready?
Yeah, next question. Go.
Let's take Genshin Impact for an example for player versus economy aspect or environment aspect. We all know that PvE model is too slow in Genshin and the game gets repetitive, which is not fun for certain time unless new things get added. How will Cypher tackle this no new content when update problem?
Oh, sorry. Okay, I love this question because it's so true, right? Like you can't just be doing this shit. And this was addressed in one of my other pre-prep questions too. But basically, Cypher is really keen at looking at alternative game modes. This is not to say we're going to make a brand new game that's different from the PvE game, but like think about new game modes that change the objective, right? Instead of a dungeon crawler, now it's a boss rush to see how fast you can kill this boss guild, as an example. Or instead of a dungeon crawler, it's now a tower defense where you play as a team to hold back this wave of monsters as long as you can. Or like Mario said, capture the flag. But basically, when we have these assets, when we have these mechanics, and we start building things to do with these mechanics that are not just the traditional game, you can come up with so many new potential gameplay models that we can run as like limited time modes to see what's good. So I think there's a lot of game modes we can do, and like this is something where community design could be great. Like imagine you could take Cypher assets and make like a Cypher game with those assets, right? That would be great. So I think that's how, and obviously that is on top of the content. So some of my answer, limited time game modes, as well as that mixes up how you play the game, even though you use the same character, as well as content cycle.
I think we can take reference from Dota and League as well, right? So limited time events.
You got your Earth, and you got all that stuff. All right, next.
Yep. Next one, Captain SquarePants. Is there going to be a trial system where new players can take a character and play the game for maybe 2 to 3 days without having to actually buy the character or invest in the character?
Great question. We are definitely considering this. It might not be a daytime trial, but it might be a level cap trial, right? So think about World of Warcraft. You play a new character, you can only get to level 10. And if you want to go past that, you have to pay. You have to buy a CD key. You have to buy a character. So we're definitely considering.
Okay, Sally, we will answer your question in an article soon. We go to Kwan's question. How would Sipher Game Economy design, deter, or adjust a scenario that most earners sell Aether as soon as they earn, or they don't consume it at all,
Say that again. What was the question?
So how would Sipher Game Economy design, deter, or adjust a scenario whereby most earners can sell the Aether as soon as they earn it and they don't consume it?
Easy question. Remember what I said about multi-tiered earners? So imagine the amount of earners, the amount of Aether you earn per day is limited by your level, for example. Or the amount of Aether you can sell per day is limited by your level. There are great things that we can do to limit the influx of mass Aether from brand new players, and specifically also from bots. And I think those two could potentially work.
Next question is from Dukes. He's testing you. What examples of successful games have the factor of depreciating digital assets?
What successful games have done depreciating digital assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would actually say, no game has impressed me yet, right? Because for games that have had that, they're not an asset, they're an in-game, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not sold outside of that game. So depreciating within the game is whatever. But when it's something that we promise you has value, can be resold on a market, then price depreciation, like on use, is a very bad UX. Is that what he's hinting at, or is he asking?
I think another reference is maybe at the start, we can refer to the Diablo 3 auction house where everything was priced super high based on the legendary or the equipment type, right? But sooner or later, all these items actually went to the trash, and then they depreciated so bad until it actually messed up with the economy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Infinite supply of items that don't break means that eventually every item is like close to free. That's just what it is.
Let's move on to the next question. Any opinions about implementing scholarship program in Cypher, whether be it short term or long term?
I mean, I think scholars are gonna come to Cypher no matter what. Right? Like, if you ask me about what we can do to facilitate that, maybe we'll facilitate people like handling their scholars better. That's something to look at. It's not core because, like I said, right, like earners follow players. If your game has a vibrant player base, earners will come to fill that supply gap, right? So I think that if it's a really key, like a really key quality of life thing, we might do it. But aside from that, scholars will come to where the money is, and if the player base is there, that's where the money is.
Okay. Next question is from Helium. Will Genesis ciphers retain necessity or value, or will the value of the successive clones offset Genesis depreciation potentially as the clone supply grows? Can you talk about the clones in general, of course?
Okay. That's a great question. And the way I think about it is, right, the way I think about it is most people that bought a Genesis paid on average 0.1 E, right? So the way we look at it is that Genesis ciphers will have value in game and outside of game that makes up for that 0.1 E, right? We have not said anything concrete yet because so much of it is subject to change, right? But we've considered many things. We've considered like blueprints that are only available to Genesis. We've considered XP bonuses for Genesis. We've considered earlier pet launches with Genesis, right? We've considered what else? We've considered like early sale of future characters to Genesis, right? But what I mean is And we haven't announced any of this because I don't want to announce something on the team's internal discussion, right? Like that's just not ethical. Okay, it's more than 0.1 E. The point still stands. The price is a certain figure, and we have to give benefits worthy of that figure. And we will do that. That is a promise. It's just we need the game to get close to the game launch where we can be much more detailed with the items that people are going to get, with the benefits that people are going to get. Okay.
Okay. Shall we move on to the prepared questions, Peek? Because
Yeah,
there's quite
sure.
a few.
Oh, dude, I've typed out like 2K words of this. I'm ready.
Okay, let's go to the first question. When you talk about attracting players, you want to start? When we
I
talk
know
about
you read the questions, please. I need to.
yeah, when you talk about attracting players and competing with AAA titles, how confident are you that Cypher can execute this at launch? And if not, how long will this take? What are the unique gameplay elements to attract users to play for fun rather than for money?
10 out of 10 question. Whoever this is, good job. So I
This is
think this
me,
is
by the way. I prepared some of these questions.
Who is this? Oh, this
This
is
is
you.
from yeah.
All right. What a average question.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very important because without the acquisition player base, P2E games simply won't get off the ground because once again, earner only economies don't work. But I still believe that there is not a P2P game right now that has truly delivered a product that makes like the general public go, "Wow, I want to play this game because it looks fun," right? And I think that the first project that delivers on this promise of actually being a good game on its standalone will be very, very successful. And I really hope that Cypher, and we're doing our best so that it is Cypher, right? Because it will be the first proper representative of play to earn gaming, right? The phase one was how do you earn, and the phase two is how do you have a banging game that's good that people can earn from. And so I explained the Steam. I brought the Steam article recently, and basically I think that the first game that truly shows people that NFTs have a benefit, but even if you don't care about NFTs, it's still a good game. It will get a lot of media attention, and it will be boosted to do very well, right? But in terms of like unique gameplay elements, right? Because this question is about unique gameplay. We have a mechanic that I will go in depth later, but it's basically our roguelike mechanic, right? So if you think about RPGs, it lets you craft the gear set to get the build you want. Think your Diablo. You make an RPG armor set, and then that's your set, right? But roguelikes are different. Roguelikes are you get a bunch of choices, and then from those random choices, you pick the best build that you can. So what Cypher is going to do is we're going to go somewhere in the middle. Okay, so your armor set actually has items that will dictate what your roguelike boosts are, right? So if you wear a certain armor set, the random choices you get is actually different. So you can actually make your armor set to favor a certain build, right? And you can aim for a specific synergy or specific build. And this lets you pull all the parts of your gear together to come up with a very strong build, which then carries you to the run to victory. And we will also implement like various systems that will challenge the players to the end game, right? So what this means is that like once you hit your end game, the level will start being tossed on the head. Like suddenly enemies are hitting for 2x damage. Enemies are having more health. Enemies are now fire element. Enemies now resist this element, right? So now you have to be like, oh crap, how do I deal with these specific, boosts, these specific changes to the dungeon level? So now you gotta go back to your drawing board, your theory crafting. How do you fix your builds so that you can beat them? And at Cypher, we don't plan to be a single genre game. Obviously, right now we're putting our entire focus into the first game because quality is important. But like this is like long term future, like 1 year, 1.5 year, right? But once the first game is stable and running on its own, then the teams will start to work on alternative gameplay tracks and like limited time modes, I said before, right? And this will be open to the community too. So which it just brings in many more paths and avenues that we can work with. Think tournaments, boss rushes, guild events, lots of things we can do to just boost general engagement.
Okay, next question, Peek. When we talk about long-term value extraction, of course, and resources that players can sell to others, you talked about in Article 3, right? What are the steps Cypher will take to prevent a pay-to-win scenario whereby I can just buy the most OP resources or the most OP weapons from the high-tier players
Yep.
and I can just destroy the game, So
Yep.
how will Cypher tackle this?
Yep. Okay. So let's clarify if we're talking about a PvE or PvP scenario, right? But overall, it just comes down to maintaining proper maintenance over your drop rates, a good game balance, and obviously requirements for buying stuff, right? A brand new player should not be able to buy the strongest item and then just go out and win with it, right? And there should not be a thing. If there's an item that beats all other items, that's bad game design, and that's literally pay to win, right? But okay, but
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the PvE scenario, right? So the big part of a roguelike is when you manage to like get your build together for that 1 in a million run and you sweep through it, right? But this becomes a problem when every run you get the exact same build and the exact same consistency, right? Once you get consistently the same build, it's no longer a roguelike. And if the build is strong enough that no matter how bad you are at the game, you still win, that is considered overpowered, right? And what we would do in this scenario is we would nerf the build. We would either nerf the build or nerf the drop rate, and to make sure that it doesn't go on so long, we really do believe that the game on live launch should have a very short update cycle, right? This means like it means like so we can frequently test changes, we can make sure that everything's in line and nothing is ruining the gameplay or the economy. And once again, I'm sure that we're gonna mess up, right? We are not going to we're not going to we're not going to be perfect all the time. We're gonna mess up sometimes. What's going to decide it is how quickly we resolve it and how quickly we fix it, you know? And that's why we have all these market restrictions that we talked about in Article 3.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the next question. As you mentioned, there are different tiers of resources that are available to players based on how much time they have spent on the game. Can you elaborate more on this overall? What do you mean by time? Is it like level based, or is it by number of wins on matches? You know.
So I can elaborate on macro level because the fine-tuned details we just don't have yet, right? But imagine the levels, 1 to 100, and the game's optimized around level 100, right? We expect that everyone's account level, not NFT level, right? Has to beat every level up to 100 first before they can participate in the end game. And what this prevents is someone buying a completely new NFT that's like rank 1 and just start playing the end game for end game rewards. Like that can't happen. It's not a good it's not a good thing to like keep your players, and it's not a good way to develop your game, right? And no other game does this, right? Like I can't go into WoW and start playing the max level. I can't do that. I can't go into Lost Ark and play the max level. No game does this. So
Yeah.
but that's the macro level. The details of dungeon or of how many dungeons there are, what account levels required, how much time you have to play, how much XP you get a level. That's just so far away that anything I say right now is most likely not true at launch, right? Because we have to fine tune and fix ABCD, all that stuff. Once we have a
Okay.
better idea regarding the numbers, I'll update everyone.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on, of course, so when we talk about different tiers of players, any idea how will matchmaking work? Because will high tier players only be grouped together with high tier players, and will dungeons scale accordingly to the level of gear a player holds? You know, or well, with the current plans for the Cypher economy, right? How can someone who is completely trash at the game and owns a lot of Cypher NFTs still maximize their earning potential?
So this is still under discussion currently. The tentative plan right now is that the higher tier players, if they decide to play with a lower tier friend, right, they would be scaled down to the lower tier friend's level. And the main thing is this is to avoid their friend like just boosting them through all the levels, or like boosting a bot through all the levels without actually playing the game properly, right? And this is the current system. It might be subject to change, but obviously, if everyone is the same level, then the game just goes on as normal. But for the Cypher economy, and for any game economy, I think it's fair to say that if you are a godlike player in this game, you should earn more than a normal player. This is not to say that normal players get nothing. Normal players will still get a certain fix, like a certain daily amount. But if someone is amazing at this game, they should get more. So for someone that owns a lot of Cypher, you have a few plays. You either wait for good timings when your Cypher is worth a lot and you sell that and you capitalize on that, right? Uh, and you can sell it for a profit when your race is strong, or when that specific set is strong, right? You can sell. But if you're really keen on holding them as your own and have them generate revenue, then the best way is to basically like become your own guild or partner with like a community. So you loan out your NFTs to people who want to play the game, who are pretty good at the game, but they don't want to put in they don't want to spend all that time and money to get to the end game. Or they already have an end game character and they have time to play a second end game character, right? And this is what you would do. You would basically get the revenue generation without effort. You would get the revenue generation without effort, and the other party would get extra revenue generation without having to buy another NFT set, right? And obviously, if someone wants to play the game just for fun and you just want to loan them the character, then you can also do that. But if you talk about maximizing earnings, you have to get someone that can maximize the gameplay.
Okay. Next question. As you mentioned, developers have to interfere with the economy to maintain a stable virtual economy, of course. Right? So how will Cypher execute this properly so as to not only protect the economy, but also to protect investors, so they are accumulating certain resources and waiting for certain stuff. How will Cypher manage this and protect their investment strategy?
I think I've talked about this very clearly in part 3 of the article, where we've discussed how we protect current investors from a flood of new investors, or worst case, flood of new bots diluting their product, right?
Mhm.
But for how we help them with their investment strategies, whether it be accumulating, selling everything off at some point in time, I think we can't define that for them. What we can do is we define the market rules very clearly, right? We like the later parts of the article. What are the market mechanics for controlling supply? And we announce that very clearly, and it's very open to the public. So people can very clearly plan around this already, and they're already being protected from bots and a bunch of new people like messing up the supply, right? So it's up to them to find the optimal timing and the optimal spot to cash in and to make their profit, right? And we promise that any changes we do make to the economy will be announced at a fixed timing and applied at fixed timings, right? So we don't want to run into a scenario where we make a change overnight that just like completely messes somebody's plans up, right? Like that's not a good thing to do, and it's quite a bad feeling thing. So we will err on the side of not fixing something unless that thing is like fundamentally busted in game. Okay, next.
Okay. Next question. Why do developers need to interfere so much with the game? If you test the game economy at the get-go before launch, right? Every single item should have an inherent value, and the developers should adjust this drop rate even before launching the game, right? So that the market can automatically set a fair value to the product. Is that correct? Or
No, because simply is that the examples that they brought up, like the fair market value. Fair market value only works in the real world where supply is finite and things go out of where things just slowly get taken out of them, right? If
Mm,
if there's an infinite supply and items never break, price will go to zero. That is just a simple fact. So there has to be interference.
okay, thank you. So next question. As you mentioned, this is a live service game and there are going to be seasons and updates along the way. So, for example, will my gear and resources become obsolete after a certain patch or after a season?
No, because I think that's just horrible UX, right? And I think people have ranted this before, like where a new content cycle comes down, all the old weapons are useless, right? We don't want that.
Okay.
So the plan for the team is for the gear to have their niches, yeah. So the first set of gear is, for example, really strong at taking out shields. So the second season, the second content cycle, will focus on taking out enemies that are blessed by the fire god, right? So they have their own niche that's better at versus the fire god monsters, but they're still roughly comparable in power, right? So what this means is that every time we introduce a new season, the old gear will still have its own niche, right? But if you talk about long term, like if you're talking about like 1 year, then yes, slowly your gear will become weaker relative to the newest gear, right? Because this it has to be, right? Because there has to be constantly changing meta. There has to be a constantly changing there has to be a constantly changing meta and things have to be updated. There's a slow and eventual power creep, and that's just how things are.
Okay. So now we move on to member questions whereby they actually send over in the in-game development channel, right? So I'm going to read some questions out from there. This is from one of our members called Bauer. I think Cypher is one of the greatest projects being developed right now. On that note, I do think that one of the community concerns is about scalability. Is there any plans to deploy the game on a layer 2 or a network that provides better speed and lower gas fees?
Yes. If this game, like I will be honest with you guys, if we still have gas fees on launch, we're gonna die. Like we won't survive. Like we just can't have like half or 1/3 of the value capture be sent to another party for gas. It's not a good model. It's not good for us. It's not good for earners. It's not good for the player. It's shit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think let me check if you answer this. Okay, so will there be an intensive testing period for the game economics, since
Yes.
those will be hard to fine tune? Have you answered
Yes.
this question, Pick, just now?
No, I'll say now, but we're going to
Okay.
slowly roll out the testing period. We're going to start with a small test net. It'll be live economy, but we'll slowly test and then slowly increase the amount of players in the market. So yes, there will be extensive testing periods, and obviously the people that we invite to this beta test will be holders and legends.
Okay. So next question is from Falcon. Actually, let me just read out the question. It's pretty long. I read in depth for the part 2, but have a little comments on the entry price and how the writer addressed the player. We all know XCs are somewhat a battle game with drawing cards at random and sell the rarity of the XCs, and the entry price for this NFT is thousands of dollars, right? So do we intend the Cypher to be priced at an entry point in between traditional and indie games? That's basically the question, generally.
Okay.
What is the
So
general pricing of Cypher, and what is the NFT owners? What is the return for the NFT owners?
yep. So I want to pair this with Kitty Cat's question, where she says, "I'm still wondering how the NFTs tie up in the system, right? I think information on cloning, types of game entry, and the cost, and how the NFT owners have a return on the high entry price as compared to other entry mechanisms is missing. Yes, this will be went into much deeper depth later. But to answer the point about the pricing of NFTs in general, right? The first thing I'm going to say is that the people who are paying $100 plus to play a P2E game as an upfront cost is simply an earner. They are not a player. And if they're a player, that number is so small that it can be excellent. And so it comes back to my point that if you target your pricing to earners, it just doesn't work. So you cannot get a healthy economy from earners only because they're looking for other people to cash in on. That's what the Genesis price, right? Like I've said this before, but we understand very clearly that you've essentially bought like a 0.1 E or where however much it is premium version of the game. So you would get benefits compared to the players that come in later. And this could be in the shape of many things. Blueprints, XP percentage gain increases, resource gain increases, priority updates to new content, right? And the list goes on. And we don't announce it yet because they're not finalized. And we're not going to announce on speculation within the team internally. Once the game economy is more concrete, once the gear and items are more concrete, then we can start announcing specifically what special benefits the Genesis get. But please understand that the team please know that the team understands how much everyone paid for the Genesis character. And we plan to give the holders the equivalent of in-game and out-game benefits to fairly compensate value. So yeah, Genesis characters have paid a premium for the game, and this premium would come with obvious benefits. And this will be much more in depth when it comes to the game launch.
Okay, thanks, Vic. So next is WL Katana Club question. Yeah. So the question is, how do you make players entry cheap?
The tentative plan is to lower the cost and increase the drop rate of cloning, so everyone could just clone more and clone faster, and it will just adjust the price to a spot that we think is good for facilitating a healthy player base.
Okay. Next question is, besides aiming for a game that is fun to play, right, and prioritizing players, how will you navigate maintaining a balanced player and earner base? Given that the current state of P2E space, I'd say it's safe to say that there are way more people looking to earn than they are looking to play in the Web3 space, right? And since Cypher started with the NFT collections in the first place, we're already in a situation where most holders are likely here to earn. So how will Cypher tackle this problem? And where will players come from that are really looking to just play only, are willing to spend more money in Cypher than earning?
That's a great question, Fancy Sam. And it's because it's integral to the health of the game, player acquisition. And the simple answer is we have to do the boring stuff there. So we have to market the game. We have to market the game to traditional gamers as well as P2E gamers. And obviously we have to get a little lucky along the way. But to answer in detail, we're already discussing partnerships with streamers, Twitch programs, and many more to start the onboarding process of gamers once they start. Right. We can also considering running exclusive gear that's only available to those who play the game early. To try and create this like FOMO feeling where they have to try the game right away. Right. And we're also looking at various media partners with the game. Like we're working on the comics. Within next week, you guys will see the characters in the comics. It's like character sneak peek. I'm excited to show that to you guys soon. We're making an in-game cinematic that we can use to market. So we're really making a lot of pushes to get this game out there and to make it be known to people that are not familiar with the Cypher IP and to people that want to play the game for fun.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peek. So for the last one, we have a resource sync idea by Pichu, right? So I think one option could be simply have items like weapons be part of a resource requirement when crafting other weapons. This would help with inflation of items. So let's say you want to craft a weapon A, you need weapons X plus resources to craft, right? So weapon A would inherit some attributes of weapon X, and think of it like breeding in Axie Infinity. But in this case, it comes with DNA from different weapons, right? So
Yeah.
this would make some people want to get specific weapons as a resource to increase the chance of crafting a weapon with specific attributes. If this game had a tier system, you could make it that crafting tier 2 weapons would require tier 1 weapons, while tier 3 could require tier 2 and or tier 1. What do you think about this idea, Pig?
Yeah, it's good. Like it's one of the ideas I mentioned. Like it's one of the things we consider. I can't say yes or no right now. We're like this specific kind of mechanic we've definitely considering already. And it creates an interesting system where you can try and pair guns to get a unique gun that hasn't been crafted before. It can be very interesting. It has interesting implications for the late game, the late game, but it could potentially be really confusing for new players on what combination is good to pair together. But some iteration of this is definitely being considered internally. I'll take one last question on game economy, and then I think we can wrap this up because it's been like an hour and a half. But I'm happy that we have went through a lot.
I think we have one question earlier from SRK.
Okay, take that
there
one.
are
Yeah.
many weapon type for Cypher Inu. So when we play the game, right, will these weapons change based on the NFTs that we hold, or will the weapons in game be all the same?
No. So at first we were going to do that system, right? But like it just didn't work from like a game dev perspective to an actual product perspective, right? So there will be some weapons, and these weapons will be given as bonus to the NFT holders. They can use them right away, obviously. But for new players, they have to craft these different weapons to try out and find out what's the best for them.
I see. So NFT owners will definitely have an edge in that
Yes,
perspective.
no. NFT holders will have a massive edge. It's just not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we highlight any other question? Let me see.
I'll take one more, and I think let's wrap it up because it's been so long. It's been an hour
Drake,
and a
can you
half.
highlight any questions? Is there anything else I missed out?
Right. Is there any other good questions that just to clarify a massive edge, like you guys are not going to be paid to win, right? You guys aren't just going to be much better than the other people, but the stuff that the other people get, they have to put time and effort in. You guys will just get that like either at a much faster rate or just outright get it at the start. And the details of this will be announced much closer to the game launch, but that's the step. So it's not pay to win. It's just you guys get a speed boost basically on acquisition and acquiring.
So just to update everyone here before we go to the next question, yeah. So the roadmap update will be coming out on the 2nd of March. So stay tuned for that one, yeah.
Okay.
Next thing, we have a question from Drag. Will NFT holders? Okay,
No,
never mind.
never mind.
Yeah. No.
Okay. I think let's call it. Thank you guys for. No, holding for longer does not influence pre-release. And this will be better for you guys because when it comes close to game launch and the game builds up, I think that if you can then resell your NFT for all these benefits, your price is much better. Whereas if we tied it to holding, there's not really an incentive for you to sell this close to game launch. I hope that answers your question. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this.
So for sculptures, right, guys? The sculptures is pretty much done, right? We have the quality check done already, and the logistics is pretty much almost complete already, and the UX UI is complete already. So the sculptures will be available to claim estimated end March by everyone, right? So just stay tuned for that one. There'll be an official announcement coming for that one, yeah. Next thing is, of course, I promised to announce the Love in the Air winners. So first up, we have 6 winners. First one is Ming Y Lim. 8875. Second one is Larissa. Third one is Nougat 9861. Fourth winner is JJ Chrome. Fifth winner is Mr. Fancy Sam. And the sixth winner is Kitty Cat. And the two top winners will be Ming Wai Lim and Mr. Fancy Sam. Ming Wai Lim and Nougat for the top two prizes. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Have a good night, good day, guys. Bye bye.